The emergency broadcast crackled through every speaker on Auburn Station. 50,000 people stopped what they were doing. Parents grabbed their children. Workers abandoned their posts. Everyone knew what 3 short bursts of static meant. They were coming. Owen Richards stared at the tactical display in the command center. 20 years of military service taught him to read bad news quickly. The red dots outnumbered the blue dots so badly it looked like someone had spilled paint across the screen. His second officer, Sarah Williams, stood beside him with her jaw clenched tight. "How long until they arrive?" Owen asked. 4 hours, maybe less, Sarah said. She pulled up another screen showing evacuation statistics. "We need 6 hours to get everyone off the station." Owen had seen this situation before. Different station, different enemy, same impossible math. Back then, he was just a junior officer following orders. The commanders decided to pull out early, save the fleet, tactical retreat. His wife and daughter were still loading onto transports when the ships jumped away. He never saw them again. "Earth Command is ordering us to evacuate immediately," Sarah said, reading from her screen. "Preserve fleet assets, fall back to the core systems." The words hit Owen like physical blows. Preserve fleet assets. That was military language for abandoning people to save ships. He looked at the evacuation display again. Families were boarding transports right now. Children who would never make it if the fleet left early. "No," Owen said quietly. Sarah turned to look at him. "Sir." "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're staying." "Commander, they outnumber us 20 to 1. Our ships aren't built for this kind of fight." Owen pulled up the fleet roster. 12 human destroyers, 3 frigates, 1 damaged cruiser that barely had working engines, against a Dominion Alliance fleet that could crush them like insects. "I know the math, Lieutenant. I also know there are 50,000 people counting on us." Sarah studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded and started typing. Owen watched her send the message. "Request denied. We stand." Across the void of space, Fleet Admiral Kalin observed the human fleet through his own displays. The Vorentine warrior had commanded fleets for 40 years. He understood battle the way most beings understood breathing. Humans were predictable. They always chose survival over honor. They would run. "The humans are repositioning," his tactical officer reported. Kalin watched the blue dots scatter across his screen. The formation made no sense. Ships spread too far apart, no defensive perimeter. It looked like chaos. "They're panicking," another officer said, "trying to flee in different directions." But Kalin had fought too many battles to believe in coincidence. "Maintain approach vector. Weapons ready." Back on Auburn Station, Owen gathered his commanders in a virtual meeting. 15 ship captains appeared on screens around the command center. Some looked determined. Others looked terrified. All of them understood what he was asking. "We need 6 hours," Owen said simply. "The civilians need 6 hours. We're going to give it to them." A captain from the destroyer Nathan Hale spoke up. "Commander, with respect, we can't win this fight." "You're right, we can't win, but we can buy time." Owen pulled up a tactical plan he had worked on for 3 hours. Most commanders would call it suicide. He called it Pattern Omega. "We're not going to fight like they expect. We're going to fight like humans." He explained the plan. Ships would deploy in scattered positions. When the enemy arrived, they would use unconventional tactics, ramming runs, overloading reactors near enemy formations, using debris fields to mask movements. Everything the Academy said never to do. "This is insane," someone muttered. "Yes," Owen agreed. "It is. Anyone who wants to evacuate with the civilians, you have my blessing. No judgment, no court-martial. This is volunteer only." None of the captains signed off. After a moment, the captain of the Nathan Hale smiled grimly. "My crew voted. We're in." One by one, every ship confirmed. Owen felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. Not hope, something harder, determination. The next 3 hours passed in a blur. Civilian transports loaded frantically. Engineers rigged ships for maximum damage output. Crews said goodbye to loved ones via video messages. Everyone knew the odds. Sarah coordinated the defensive positions. She had graduated top of her class at the academy. Everything she learned said this plan violated basic tactical doctrine. She sent orders anyway. The Dominion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly on schedule. Kalen watched as his massive force entered real space. 200 warships against 15 human vessels. The humans should be fleeing. Instead, they held position. "Interesting," Kalen murmured. "Should we hail them, offer terms?" his second asked. "No, they know what's coming. Begin the attack." The first Dominion ships opened fire. Plasma beams crossed the void. One human destroyer, the Franklin, took a direct hit. Its shields collapsed. Hull breached. Atmosphere vented into space. But the Franklin didn't retreat. It accelerated toward the enemy formation. "What are they doing?" Kalen's tactical officer shouted. The Franklin's reactor went critical. The ship detonated in the middle of 3 Dominion cruisers. The explosion created a massive debris field. Sensor readings went haywire. 2 cruisers emerged damaged. The third didn't emerge at all. "They destroyed themselves," an officer said in disbelief. Kalen leaned forward. "No, they traded themselves for 3 of ours. Continue the assault." More human ships moved into attack positions. They didn't fight like any enemy Kalen had faced. They used their ships like weapons instead of vehicles. Every human loss cost the Dominion multiple vessels. The destroyer Lexington, engines destroyed and half the crew dead, aimed itself at a Dominion carrier. The carrier's weapons tore the small ship apart, but momentum carried the wreckage forward. Metal fragments traveling at thousands of kilometers per second shredded the carrier's hull. Owen watched his fleet die. Each loss was a name he knew, a crew he had served with, friends. But the civilian transports kept loading. The clock kept ticking. 3 hours into the battle, Sarah reported the last transport was ready. "All civilians evacuated, Commander." "All ships begin withdrawal," Owen ordered. His command ship, the Thermopylae, had taken heavy damage. 1 engine offline, weapons barely functional, and the jump drive was completely dead. "Sir, we can't jump," his helmsman reported. Sarah looked at him. "Order the crew to the escape pods. We can transfer you to another ship." Owen shook his head. "Get everyone else out. I'll keep the Dominion busy." "That's an order for me to abandon you." "That's an order to save your life, Lieutenant." Sarah's hands moved across her controls, but she wasn't routing herself to an escape pod. She was locking down the bridge. "With respect, Commander, no, you don't get to die alone." The rest of the crew refused evacuation too. Owen wanted to be angry. Instead, he felt proud. The Thermopylae drifted toward the Dominion fleet, powerless and broken. Kalen watched the crippled ship approach. He had expected many things from this battle, not this. "Hail them," Kalen ordered. Owen's face appeared on screen, bloodied, exhausted, defiant. "Human Commander, your vessels may retreat. You have earned safe passage." Owen blinked in surprise. "We lost. Why let us go?" Kalen considered his words carefully. "You did not lose, human. You merely stopped winning. There is a difference. Your warriors fought with honor. I will not kill warriors who have already proven their courage." The Dominion fleet parted. The surviving human ships jumped to safety. Owen's crew managed to get the auxiliary engines working enough to limp away. But as the humans escaped, Kalen sent an urgent message across the galaxy. To the Council, to every military commander who would listen. The message was simple: we have a problem. The humans don't fight like anyone else. They fight knowing they will die, not hopping to survive, knowing death is certain and fighting anyway. Someone needs to understand what that means. Because Kalen suspected the galaxy was about to change forever. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within days, every species with faster-than-light communication heard about Auburn Station, the small human fleet that refused to retreat, the impossible stand against overwhelming odds. Alien military analysts studied the battle recordings over and over, trying to understand what they had witnessed. In the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Hiroshi Tanaka stood before representatives from 40 different species. Most looked at him with confusion, some with fear, a few with something that might have been respect. The human fleet violated standard tactical doctrine, declared a Pelthian counselor. The insect-like being's translator rendered her clicking sounds into flat, emotionless words. They sacrificed ships unnecessarily. This is either incompetence or insanity. Hiroshi had spent 20 years learning to navigate galactic politics. He knew when to be diplomatic. This was not one of those times. "You're right," he said simply. "By your standards, what we did was insane. We lost 60% of our fleet buying time for civilians to evacuate. Any other species would have retreated immediately." "Then why did you not retreat?" asked a Vorentine elder. "Because those 50,000 people on Auburn Station weren't just numbers on a casualty report. They were families, children, people with lives and dreams and futures. We don't abandon them just because the math says we should." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued humans were too emotional for modern warfare. Others suggested humanity should be restricted from military operations entirely. A few wondered if human psychology represented some kind of threat. Across the galaxy on a human research station, Dr. Priya Nair barely noticed the political debate. She was too busy reviewing data that made her hands shake. As a xenobiologist specializing in comparative evolution, she had spent years studying how different species developed warfare. Her assistant, a young researcher named David Park, looked over her shoulder at the screen. "Is that right? That can't be right." "I've checked it 17 times," Priya said. "Earth has more apex predators per square kilometer than any other inhabited world in the database. More natural disasters, more diseases, more environmental extremes. Maybe we just got unlucky with our planet." Priya pulled up another set of data. "Look at this. Geological records going back 10 million years. Earth has had 5 major mass extinction events. The other inhabited worlds, average of 1. Some had none." "What does this mean?" "It means humans didn't just survive a harsh world. We survived the harshest world. Every single pressure that should have destroyed our species made us stronger instead." She opened another file showing comparative psychology studies. Most species in the galaxy experienced severe stress responses at 30% casualties. Their instincts screamed at them to flee and preserve the group. Humans didn't break until 70 or 80% losses, sometimes higher. "We're wired differently," Priya said quietly. "Other species evolved to avoid danger. We evolved to face it head-on because running wasn't always an option on Earth." A message appeared on her screen. Earth Command wanted her research immediately. The Council was demanding explanations for human behavior. They needed scientific data to back up their political position. Priya started compiling her report. She had a feeling it would change everything. Meanwhile, aboard his flagship in Vorentine space, Fleet Admiral Kalen reviewed the Auburn Station battle footage for the 100th time. His tactical officers had prepared detailed analysis. Energy expenditure, ship positions, casualty rates, all the normal metrics of warfare. None of it explained what he had seen. "The human ship Franklin detected our targeting solution," his tactical officer explained. "They knew we were about to destroy them, but instead of taking evasive action, they accelerated into our formation." "Suicide tactics are not unknown," Kalen noted. Yes, Admiral, but suicide tactics are usually last resort desperation. The Franklin made that choice in the first 15 minutes of battle. They sacrificed themselves when they still had options. Kalen watched the recording again. The human destroyer's explosion crippled 3 Dominion ships, a favorable trade by any calculation, but it required the crew to choose certain death when escape remained possible. What kind of species does this? One officer wondered aloud. A dangerous one, Kalen answered, and possibly the galaxy's only hope. His officers looked confused. Kalen brought up classified intelligence reports, information he had been receiving for months but hadn't fully understood until now. The reports spoke of strange signals from the galactic rim, massive energy signatures. Scouts that went to investigate never returned. The council dismissed it as equipment malfunction or natural phenomena. Kalen knew better. The Devourers are returning, he said quietly. The bridge went silent. Every Vorantine knew the old stories. The machine swarms that consumed civilizations. The enemy that nearly destroyed the galaxy millions of years ago before mysteriously vanishing. If the Devourers return, we will need warriors who don't know when to quit, Kalen continued. Warriors who fight past the point where any rational being would surrender. The humans may be our only chance. Back in the council chambers, the debate raged on. Species argued about whether humanity should be contained, monitored, or integrated into galactic military structures. Some suggested placing restrictions on human fleet sizes. Others wanted psychological screening for all human officers. Then the emergency broadcast interrupted everything. Every screen in the chamber switched to the same feed, a remote research outpost on the galactic rim. The footage showed the sky filled with ships, thousands of them, tens of thousands, all identical, all clearly not biological in origin. The scientist recording the video spoke with surprising calm given what she was watching. This is Research Station Gamma 7. We are observing massive fleet movement. Unknown origin, approaching fast. They're not responding to any hails. I don't think they're alive, I think they're. The feed cut to static. The council chamber descended into chaos. Species representatives shouted over each other. Some demanded their fleets return to protect home worlds. Others called for emergency military mobilization. Kalen's face appeared on the main screen, transmitted from Vorantine space. Honored counselors, his voice cut through the panic. You have been debating whether humanity is too dangerous to integrate into our forces. I suggest the question is now whether we can afford not to. A counselor objected. You want us to adopt human tactics, their reckless disregard for calculated risk. No, Kalen said. I want them to teach us something our species forgot long ago, how to fight when victory seems impossible, because the Devourers don't calculate acceptable losses. They don't retreat when damaged. They consume everything until nothing remains. He paused, letting that sink in. The machines don't understand fear or self-preservation. To fight them, we need warriors who don't either, and we just found them. Hiroshi watched the council faces change. Fear transformed into desperate consideration. They were starting to understand. What are you proposing? Asked the Pelthian counselor. Kalen looked directly at Hiroshi. I propose we ask humanity to teach us how they fight, and in return we teach them everything we know, our technology, our tactics, our resources. Together we might survive what's coming. Hiroshi thought about Commander Richards and the crew of the Thermopylae, thought about the Franklin's final charge, thought about 50,000 civilians who lived because humans refused to accept acceptable losses. On behalf of Earth, Hiroshi said slowly, we accept, but understand something. We're not going to turn you into humans. We're going to show you what we learned from 10 million years of surviving the galaxy's worst death world. And what is that? Another counselor asked. Hiroshi smiled without humor. that the only unacceptable loss is giving up. The vote passed, 27 species in favor, 8 against, 5 abstaining. Humanity would train the galaxy's forces in human doctrine. Priya received the news in her lab. She immediately transmitted her research to Earth Command and the Council, the scientific evidence supporting what Hiroshi had just argued. Humans were evolutionarily designed for exactly this kind of warfare. But as she closed the transmission, she noticed something in the old Earth geological data, an anomaly she had dismissed before, a pattern in the extinction events that seemed almost deliberate, almost designed. She opened a new research file and started digging deeper. Something about Earth's history didn't add up, and Priya had a terrible suspicion she knew what it meant. Somewhere in the galactic rim, the Devourer fleet continued its approach, silent, relentless, patient. They had waited millions of years for the galaxy to develop sufficiently. Now the harvest could begin. They had anticipated many defensive strategies from the biological life forms. They had not anticipated humans. But they remembered Earth. They had visited once before, long ago, and detected something in the planet's evolutionary path, a potential threat they chose to let mature. The harvest would begin with Earth, eliminate the anomaly first, then consume the rest. The training facility orbited a neutral moon between human and Vorentine space. 3 months after Auburn Station, 500 alien officers gathered to learn from human instructors. Most came reluctantly. Some came curious. All of them expected to teach the humans more than they would learn. Commander Owen Richards walked into the briefing room. His promotion to admiral had come with the new assignment: train the galaxy's best warriors in human combat doctrine. He looked at the assembled aliens, Vorentines with their scaled skin and predatory eyes, Pelthians with their chitinous exoskeletons, tall, graceful Meridians, stocky, powerful Chronar, dozens of species, all watching him with varying degrees of skepticism. "Good morning," Owen said. "I'm Admiral Richards. Over the next 6 months, I'm going to teach you how humans fight. Some of you will hate it. Some of you will think I'm insane. All of you will question whether this is worth your time." A Vorentine officer raised his hand. "Admiral, with respect, we have been fighting wars for thousands of years. What can humans teach us in 6 months?" "How to lose," Owen said simply. The room went quiet. "Every species here knows how to win battles. You have better ships than us, better weapons, better technology. You should defeat us every time." Owen pulled up a holographic display showing the Auburn Station battle. "But you didn't. You want to know why?" He zoomed in on the Franklin's final moments. "Because we know how to lose and keep fighting anyway. You're about to face an enemy that doesn't care about casualties, doesn't retreat when damaged, doesn't negotiate. The Devourers will keep coming until you're dead or they are. Your training taught you to preserve forces and fight another day. That won't work anymore." A Pelthian officer spoke up, her translator rendering her sounds into precise words. "You are suggesting we abandon strategic thinking." "No, I'm suggesting you expand it. Watch this." Owen played footage from a training simulation. A human fleet facing impossible odds, ship after ship destroyed. A Meridian observer whispered, "They should retreat." But the humans didn't retreat. They used their dying ships as weapons, created debris fields, forced the enemy to waste ammunition on wrecks. Every loss bought time and inflicted damage. "Strategic thinking includes knowing when the objective is worth dying for," Owen said. "At Auburn Station, the objective was 50,000 lives. That was worth our fleet. You need to learn to make that calculation." Over the following weeks, alien officers struggled with human training methods. Sarah Williams, now Captain Williams, ran combat simulations that most species found psychologically disturbing. A Chronar commander named Breck slammed his fist on the console. "This simulation is impossible. You want me to sacrifice half my fleet to protect a cargo convoy?" The convoy contains medical supplies for a plague outbreak, Sarah said calmly. 20 million people will die without it. How many ships is that worth? The logical action is to request escort reinforcements and delay the convoy. The plague kills 10,000 people per day. Every day you delay, more die. Now answer the question, how many ships? Breck stared at her. His species valued strength and honor, but also strategic preservation of forces. The math here made no sense. Lose hundreds of warriors to save millions of civilians who couldn't fight. All of them, he finally said. If necessary, all of them. Sarah nodded. Good. Now run the simulation again and find a way to deliver the supplies while losing fewer ships, because the goal isn't to die gloriously. It's to succeed while losing as few people as possible, but you have to be willing to pay the maximum price if that's what success requires. Breck ran the simulation 17 times. Each time, he lost fewer ships while still ensuring the convoy arrived. By the end, he was thinking in ways Kronar tactical doctrine never taught. Meanwhile, Dr. Priya Nair worked with alien psychologists, trying to bridge the gap between species. A Meridian psychologist named Silvara couldn't understand human stress responses. Your species experiences the same fear chemicals as ours, Silvara said, reviewing brain scan data. But you continue fighting at casualty levels that would cause complete psychological collapse in any other species. How? We're wired differently, Priya explained. Human brains have unusually strong connections between the fear centers and the decision-making centers. We feel fear just as much as you do, but we can choose to act despite it. That should be impossible. Fear exists to prevent suicidal behavior. On most worlds, yes. On Earth, running from danger often meant certain death. Better to face the predator and fight. Our ancestors who ran from cave bears died. The ones who grabbed rocks and fought back sometimes survived. After enough generations, we evolved brains that could override fear when necessary. Silvara looked troubled. You're describing psychological damage as an evolutionary advantage. Maybe. Or maybe we're describing the only way to survive on a planet that spent millions of years trying to kill us. The training continued. Alien officers learned human small unit tactics, how to fight when cut off from command, how to make decisions when communication breaks down, how to keep fighting when every sensor says retreat. A month into training, they received their first real test. Devourer scouts probed a border system. A mixed human-alien task force responded. Captain Sarah Williams commanded a destroyer group with Vorentine and Kronar crews under her authority. The Devourer ships attacked without warning. No demands, no negotiation, just immediate, overwhelming violence. All ships defensive pattern Delta, Sarah ordered. The Vorentine commander hesitated. Captain, that pattern exposes our flanks. It also concentrates our firepower on their lead ships. Trust the training. Execute pattern Delta. The mixed fleet moved into position. The Devourers tore into them with energy weapons that burned through shields like paper. 2 Kronar destroyers took critical damage. The Kronar commander broadcast on an open channel. Retreat orders. Sarah watched the tactical display. The civilians on the mining colony below needed 12 more minutes to evacuate. Negative. Hold formation. Make them pay for every meter. Captain, my ship is losing power. We cannot maintain position. Then use your ship as a shield for the others. Cover their retreat vector. She heard the Kronar commanders breathing over the comm, heard him giving orders to his crew, heard them acknowledge without hesitation. The damaged Kronar ship positioned itself between the enemy and the rest of the fleet. Devourer weapons hammered it. The ship died slowly, buying precious minutes. But the civilians evacuated, all of them. When the task force returned to the training facility, they had lost 3 ships and 400 crew members. By traditional metrics, the mission was a disaster. By human metrics, it was a success. Admiral Kalen met them at the dock. He had watched the battle remotely. The Kronar commander did not hesitate when you ordered him to sacrifice his ship. No, sir, he didn't, Sarah confirmed. 3 months ago, that would have been unthinkable. A Kronar warrior would rather die fighting than serve as a shield. You changed their tactical thinking. We didn't change them, Admiral. We just showed them that protecting others is a form of fighting. They were already brave. They just needed permission to use that bravery differently. Kalen looked at the surviving crews disembarking. Aliens who had learned to think like humans while remaining true to their own values. He saw Vorentine officers supporting wounded Pelthian comrades. Kronar warriors helping repair damaged Meridian ships. "This is working," he said quietly, "faster than I expected." Owen joined them, reading casualty reports. Each name hurt, but the colony survived because these crews chose to pay the price. "It's working because they're learning the right lesson," Owen said. "Not that dying is glorious, that protecting others is worth the risk. Once you understand that, the tactical decisions become clearer." A transmission arrived from Priya's research lab. Urgent. Eyes only for Richards and Kalen. They read it in private. Priya had found something in Earth's geological records, evidence that Earth's history wasn't natural. The extinction events showed patterns, deliberate patterns, like someone had been engineering the planet's evolution. "She thinks Earth was modified," Kalen said slowly. "That something made your world deliberately harsh to create warriors." "The architects," Owen read from the report. "An ancient race that fought the devourers and lost. Before they died, they created Earth as a long-term weapon. They engineered a death world that would forge the ultimate survivors." If this is true, humanity isn't just from a harsh planet. You were designed to fight the devourers. Owen closed the report. "Does it matter? Design or evolution, we're still who we chose to become. And right now, the galaxy needs us to be exactly what we are." Kalen nodded. "Agreed. But we should keep this information classified. If the other species learn humans were artificially created as weapons, they might stop trusting us," Owen finished. "Understood." They rejoined the training exercises. Across the facility, hundreds of alien officers practiced human tactics, learning to make impossible choices, learning that some things were worth any price. In deep space, the Devourer fleet detected the border skirmish, analyzed the data. The biological life forms were adapting faster than predicted. The humans were spreading their tactical methods to other species. This complicated the harvest calculations, but only slightly. The Devourers had patience. They had waited millions of years. They could wait a few more months while the biological forces prepared. Then they would come in numbers that made defense impossible, and they would start with Earth. Destroy the source of the adaptation. The rest of the galaxy would fall easily afterward. Dr. Priya Nair stood in the excavation site on Mars. 6 months of digging through red rock had revealed something impossible, a structure that predated human civilization by millions of years. The walls were covered in symbols that no living species recognized. But her translation algorithms had finally cracked enough of the language to understand what she was reading. "This can't be real," David whispered beside her. "Earth was manufactured." Priya touched the wall. The material was neither metal nor stone, something that had survived unchanged for 10 million years. Not manufactured, engineered, modified. The architects found Earth when it was just another planet with primitive life. They changed it. The symbols told a story. An ancient civilization called the Architects had fought the Devourers for thousands of years. Their technology was incredible, their strategy flawless. They lost anyway because the machines had something biological life couldn't match: infinite patience and absolute determination. The Architects realized they needed a counterweapon, Priya said, reading from the walls. something the machines couldn't predict or defeat. They needed warriors who thought like machines but felt like organic beings, who would fight with mechanical determination but biological creativity. So they created Earth, David said. They modified Earth, increased volcanic activity, adjusted the orbit slightly to create extreme seasons, introduced more aggressive predator species. Every mass extinction event deliberately triggered to force rapid evolution. The symbols described the process in detail. The architects had seeded Earth with monitoring stations, watched as life evolved under constant pressure, watched species adapt or die, watched humans emerge from the chaos. They were breeding soldiers, David said quietly. They were creating survivors. There's a difference. Priya found the final message near the center of the structure. A holographic projector still functioning after all this time. She activated it. An alien figure appeared. Tall, graceful, with 4 arms and eyes that held ancient sadness. It spoke in a language that died millions of years ago, but her computer translated in real time. If you are seeing this, then our greatest work succeeded. We created a world that would forge the ultimate warriors, not through programming or genetic manipulation, through experience, through survival, through choice. The figure gestured and images appeared. Earth through different ages, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, each one pushing life to adapt faster. The Devourers destroyed us because we had grown too peaceful. We forgot how to fight with desperation, how to sacrifice everything for victory. So we made a world that would never let its children forget. The hologram showed early humans, fighting predators, surviving famines, developing tools and language and cooperation because anything less meant extinction. We gave them a death world. They made it home. We gave them endless challenges. They created civilizations anyway. We tried to break them. They became unbreakable. The image shifted to show the Devourers, endless machine fleets consuming everything. The machines will return. They are patient. They will wait until organic life is sufficiently developed to be worth harvesting. When they come, humanity must be ready, must be strong enough to do what we could not. The hologram looked directly at Priya, as if seeing across millions of years. Human, if you are watching this, then our work is complete. You are what we hope to create. Warriors who understand the cost of war but fight anyway, who feel fear but choose courage, who know they might die but stand firm regardless. Finish what we could not, save what we couldn't save. The hologram faded. Priya stood in silence, processing what she had learned. Humanity wasn't natural. They were designed. Every harsh environment, every challenge, every pressure that made humans what they were, all of it artificial. Do we tell people, David asked, that we're basically weapons? We're not weapons. We're survivors who learn to fight. There's a difference. But Priya knew this information would change everything. She sent an encrypted message to Admiral Richards and Fleet Admiral Kalen. This was too important for normal channels. 24 hours later, she stood in a secure conference room facing Richards, Kalen, Ambassador Hiroshi, and Captain Williams. She presented her findings, showed them the evidence, played the hologram recording. The room stayed silent for a long time. So everything that makes humans human, Sarah said slowly, was engineered by aliens who died millions of years ago. Everything that forced humans to adapt, Priya corrected. The architects provided the pressure. Humans decided how to respond. They could have become vicious killers. Instead, they learned cooperation and compassion because those traits helped them survive. Hiroshi leaned back in his chair. If this information becomes public, it will cause chaos. People will question everything about human identity. Or, Owen said quietly, people will realize that even if the architects designed the challenges, humans chose how to face them. We chose to be more than just survivors. We chose to protect the weak, to value life, to refuse abandoning others. The architects gave us the tools, Sarah added. We built the house. Kalen studied the hologram recording. This explains much. Why humans fight past the point of logic. Why you value individual lives over strategic calculation. You were designed to never accept extinction as inevitable. Does this information change the alliance? Owen asked. No, Kalen said firmly. If anything, it confirms we need you. The architects created humanity specifically to fight the Devourers. You are the weapon they left behind. We're not weapons, Priya said again. We're people who learn to fight. That matters. A priority transmission interrupted the meeting. Emergency alert from the outer rim. Multiple systems going dark. The pattern was clear. The Devourers were no longer scouting. They were attacking in force. And they were headed directly toward Earth. They know, Owen said. The machines know what we are. They're targeting the source. Kalen pulled up tactical projections. We can intercept them at the Helios system. It's the last defensive position before Earth. If they break through there, nothing stops them from reaching your homeworld. How long until they arrive? Sarah asked. 2 weeks, maybe less. Hiroshi sent emergency messages to the council. Every available ship needed to converge on Helios. This was the battle that would decide everything. Owen looked at his officers. Get every ship we have to Helios, every weapon, every crew. This is what the architects prepared us for. What about the civilians on Earth? Sarah asked. We evacuate who we can, but we both know most people won't leave. 8 billion humans on Earth. They'll want to fight. That's insane, David protested. They're civilians, not soldiers. They're humans, Owen corrected, which means they won't accept extinction quietly, and honestly, we might need them. The meeting broke up. Orders went out across human and allied space. Every combat-capable ship began converging on Helios. The largest fleet in galactic history was assembling. But the Devourers were bringing more. Scouts reported millions of machine ships, numbers that made defense calculations meaningless. Priya returned to the Martian excavation site one more time. She studied the architect's symbols, found one more message she had missed before. Earth is more than a forge for warriors. It is a weapon itself. When the time comes, the planet will remember its purpose. She didn't understand what that meant, but she transmitted it to Earth Command anyway. Someone needed to figure out what the architects meant before the Devourers arrived. On Earth, engineers started detecting anomalies, energy readings from deep underground, systems activating that no one had built, ancient machines waking up after millions of years dormant. Earth itself was changing, preparing for something. Admiral Richards read the reports from his flagship. The ship was en route to Helios with the rest of the human fleet. They had 2 weeks to prepare defenses, 2 weeks to get ready for a battle they couldn't win by any calculation. But Auburn Station taught him calculations didn't matter when the objective was survival. They would hold Helios, buy time for Earth to evacuate civilians and prepare defenses. And if they couldn't hold Helios, they would fall back to Earth and make the Devourers pay for every inch of space. Sarah approached him on the bridge. Admiral, the alien crews are requesting reassignment. Owen's heart sank. After all the training, they were abandoning humanity at the critical moment. They want to transfer to the frontline positions, Sarah continued, smiling slightly. Every single one of them. They say if humans are willing to die for their homeworld, the least they can do is die alongside you. Owen felt something tight in his chest, pride mixed with sorrow. Grant the requests, and tell them we're honored to serve with them. Across the galaxy, ships converged on Helios system. Humans and Vorantines and Pelthians and Meridians and Kronar and dozens of other species, all preparing to face impossible odds. All learning that sometimes the only acceptable answer to extinction was refusing to accept it. The Devourers detected the gathering fleet, calculated the odds, determined victory probability at 99.8%. The calculations didn't account for one variable: the willingness to fight past the point where any rational being would surrender. The machines were about to learn why the architects feared humanity enough to spend millions of years creating them. The Helios system had 3 planets and a dying star. Strategic location, easy to defend if you had enough ships. The Allied fleet brought 15,000 vessels. Humans, Vorantines, Pelthians, Meridians, Kronar, and 30 other species. The largest military force ever assembled. The Devourer fleet outnumbered them 200 to 1. Admiral Owen Richards studied the tactical display aboard his flagship. 3 million machine ships approaching in perfect formation. No wasted movement. No tactical errors. Just overwhelming numbers guided by cold calculation. All ships battle stations, Owen ordered. Execute defensive pattern Alpha. The Allied fleet arranged itself across the Helios system. Mines deployed. Weapon platforms activated. Every ship powered weapons and checked shields. Captains gave final speeches to their crews. Fleet Admiral Kalen commanded the Vorantine Heavy Battle Group. Commander Breck led the Kronar Assault Wings. Captain Sarah Williams coordinated the human destroyer squadrons. Ambassador Hiroshi remained on Earth, managing civilian evacuations and political coordination. Enemy fleet entering weapons range in 30 minutes, Sarah reported. Owen opened a fleet-wide channel. Time for his speech. Humans expected their commanders to say something inspiring before impossible battles. He thought about what to say, decided on truth instead of inspiration. All ships, this is Admiral Richards. You all know the odds. The enemy outnumbers us badly. Most of us won't survive this battle. That's not pessimism. That's mathematics. He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew, seeing determination mixed with fear. But mathematics doesn't account for choice. The Devourers calculate victory based on numbers and firepower. They can't calculate courage, can't measure determination, can't understand why anyone would fight a battle they know they'll lose. We're not here because we think we can win. We're here because Earth is behind us, because 8 billion people are counting on us to buy them time, because running means letting those people die, and that's not acceptable. The machines think this is about tactics and technology. It's not. It's about what we're willing to pay to protect what matters. So when your ship takes damage, keep fighting. When your shields fail, keep fighting. When the odds look impossible, remember that we've done impossible before. Today we teach the galaxy that some things are worth any price. Richards out. The Devourer fleet entered weapons range. No warnings. No demands. They opened fire immediately with energy weapons that burned through space like rivers of light. The battle began. Allied ships returned fire. Missiles streaked across the void. Energy beams lanced out. Point defense systems engaged. Space filled with explosions and debris. The first hour was chaos. Ships died on both sides. But for every Allied vessel destroyed, only 3 Devourer ships went down. The mathematics were terrible. Pattern Alpha isn't working, Sarah reported. Their targeting solutions adapt faster than we can adjust. Execute Pattern Omega, Owen ordered. Sarah hesitated. Omega was the suicide protocol. Human ships would deliberately overload reactors near enemy formations. Allied ships would make ramming runs. Every vessel became a weapon. All ships Pattern Omega, Owen confirmed. Make them pay. The Franklin sacrifice at Auburn Station had taught humanity something. Sometimes the ship itself was the best weapon. Now they would teach the galaxy that lesson. Human destroyers accelerated toward Devourer formations. Engines pushed past safety limits. Reactors deliberately destabilized. Each explosion took dozens of machine ships with it. But the Allied crews hesitated. every species except humans. Then Commander Breck's voice came over the command channel. Kronar heavy cruiser Storm Fist executing Omega pattern for the future, for Earth. His ship charged into the enemy formation, destroyed itself and 50 Devourer vessels. That broke the hesitation. Vorantine captains followed. Pelthian commanders made their own suicide runs. Meridian ships joined the assault. The mathematics of war changed. Now each Allied loss cost the Devourers 20 or 30 ships, still losing, but losing more slowly. Hours passed. The battle spread across the entire system. Debris fields grew. Casualty lists climbed. 60% of the Allied fleet destroyed, 70%, 80%. But they held the line. The Devourers hadn't broken through yet. On Earth, Dr. Priya monitored energy readings from the planet's core. The readings were spiking. Ancient systems activating faster. She still didn't understand what the architects had built. Then the readings peaked, and everything changed. A shockwave of energy erupted from Earth, visible from space, spreading outward faster than light through some mechanism nobody understood. Weapon platforms rose from Earth's oceans, technologies that made current military hardware look primitive. Defense grids activated worldwide. The entire planet transformed into a fortress. But more than that, every human in the fleet felt something, a connection, like Earth itself was speaking to them, sharing strength, sharing purpose. "What is happening?" Kalen demanded. Priya checked her readings, barely believing them. Earth is a weapons system. The architects didn't just modify the planet. They turned it into the ultimate defensive platform, and it's been dormant for millions of years, waiting for this moment. Can we use it? It requires human neural patterns to control. The system needs crews to interface with it. Owen understood immediately. How many crews? Thousands, maybe tens of thousands, and the interface process. The readings suggest it's extremely painful, possibly fatal. Send out the call for volunteers. Within minutes, transmission reached Earth. They needed people to interface with alien technology. Needed them to endure agony to activate Earth's defenses. Needed them knowing they might die. Millions volunteered. Men and women and children who couldn't fight in space but could fight for their home. They lined up at interface stations worldwide. The first volunteers screamed as alien technology connected to human brains. Some died instantly. Others survived but would never recover. But the weapons activated. Massive energy cannons emerged from the surface. Targeting solutions appeared in the minds of the interface crews. They fired. Beams of impossible power crossed light years of space instantly. Hit the Devourer fleet at Helios with precision that defied physics. Thousands of machine ships exploded. "Earth is firing," Sarah reported, voice filled with awe. "They're hitting targets in our battle space from 8 light years away." The tide of battle shifted. The Devourers tried to adapt, calculated new strategies, but every calculation failed because Earth's weapons operated on technology they couldn't understand. More humans volunteered for interface duty, more weapons activated. Earth's entire surface became a weapon platform. But the cost was horrific. Tens of thousands dying or permanently damaged to operate systems never meant for human minds. Owen watched the casualty reports, watched people sacrifice themselves to protect others. This was what the architects had created, not just warriors, people willing to pay any price to defend their home. "Admiral Devourer fleet is retreating," Kalen reported. "They're withdrawing from Helios." But Owen saw the tactical display. The retreat was temporary. The machines were regrouping, calculating. They hadn't given up. They were adapting. "They're going to hit Earth directly," Owen said. "Everything we did just bought time. They're coming for Earth with everything they have." "How long?" "Days, maybe a week." Sarah pulled up projections. "Sir, If they commit their full fleet to Earth assault, even with the planet's weapons, the casualties will be. I know, billions dead, maybe the whole planet. So what do we do? Owen thought about the architect's message, about humanity's purpose, about 50,000 people at Auburn Station who lived because humans refused to accept acceptable losses. We make them fight for every inch. We use Earth's weapons. We use every ship we have left. We make the price so high that even machines calculate it's not worth paying. And if that's not enough, then we make sure Earth takes as many of them with it as possible. Across Earth, people prepared for the final battle. Children evacuated to underground shelters. Adults armed themselves with whatever weapons existed. The interface volunteers kept manning their stations despite knowing they were dying slowly. The Devourer fleet regrouped, calculated new strategies, determined the only solution was overwhelming force against Earth directly. They committed every ship, 3 million vessels converging on one planet. The true war was about to begin, not at some distant system, not in space, at Earth itself. Humanity's home, the death world that forged them, the weapon the architects left behind. And humans everywhere made the same choice their species always made when extinction came calling. They refused to fall back. 5 days after Helios, the Devourer fleet arrived at Earth. 3 million machine ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They surrounded the planet like a metal shell, blocking out the stars. 8 billion humans looked up at their sky filled with enemy vessels. Most people would have panicked. Humans armed themselves and prepared to fight. Admiral Owen Richards stood in the command center built into Earth's ancient weapon systems, his body connected to the interface. Pain burned through his neural pathways, but he stayed conscious. Around him, thousands of other volunteers maintained their connections despite agony. Through the interface, Owen could see everything, every weapon on Earth, every ship in orbit, every soldier preparing for ground combat if the machines broke through. He was connected to his entire planet. All ships, this is Admiral Richards. Final defensive positions. No retreat orders will be given. This is our home. We stand here. The surviving Allied fleet gathered around Earth. 5,000 ships, all that remained from Helios. Humans, Vorantines, Pelthians, Meridians, Kronar, species that learned to fight like humans while staying true to themselves. Fleet Admiral Kalin commanded the orbital defense grid. Admiral Richards, their fleet size makes victory mathematically impossible. I know, but since when do we care about mathematics? The Devourers attacked, 3 million ships firing simultaneously. Energy weapons hit Earth's shields. The shields absorbed incredible damage but started failing. Weapon platforms returned fire, each shot destroying multiple machine vessels. But the numbers were too great. For every Devourer destroyed, dozens remained. The assault was endless. Owen felt every shot Earth took, felt shields weakening, felt weapon systems overheating. The pain almost made him pass out, but he held on. Captain Sarah Williams led the human destroyer squadrons in suicide runs. Her ship, damaged and burning, crashed into a Devourer battleship. Both exploded. Her last transmission was simple: make it count. Owen wanted to scream, wanted to mourn. The interface wouldn't let him. He could only watch and fight and coordinate. Commander Breck's remaining Kronar ships formed a defensive wall around Earth's orbital stations. They took punishing fire, held position, died protecting the planet that taught them courage meant more than survival. Vorantine heavy cruisers engaged at point-blank range. Pelthian carriers launched wave after wave of fighters. Meridian missile platforms exhausted their ammunition and rammed enemy formations. The battle raged for hours. Earth's surface took hits when shields failed in sections. Cities burned. Millions died, but the interface volunteers stayed at their posts, kept the weapons firing, kept fighting. Dr. Priya Nair monitored the weapon systems from her station. She finally understood the architect's full plan. Earth wasn't just a weapon platform. It was learning, adapting, using human neural patterns to evolve tactics in real time. The Devourers were machines, perfect calculations, optimal strategies, but they couldn't adapt like biological minds, couldn't imagine new solutions. Humans could. Through the interface, Owen felt Earth's systems synchronize with human creativity. The weapons started firing in patterns the architects never programmed, tactics that emerged from human desperation and innovation. A weapon platform in the Pacific Ocean suddenly overloaded its power core deliberately, created an electromagnetic pulse that disabled thousands of Devourer ships. Owen hadn't ordered that. Some interface volunteer had improvised. More volunteers across Earth started improvising, using the alien weapons in ways they weren't designed for, creating cascading failures in enemy formations, turning defensive systems into offensive weapons. The Devourers tried to adapt, recalculated strategies, but every time they adapted, humans changed tactics again. Biological creativity versus machine efficiency. Ambassador Hiroshi watched from an underground bunker, watched humanity's greatest battle, watched his people die by the millions, watched them fight anyway. He sent one final message to the Galactic Council. You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous. Watch what we're willing to pay to survive. Watch what we're willing to become to protect our home. And pray you never give us a reason to turn this determination against you. Above ground, civilians fought Devourer machines that landed to secure strategic positions, people with makeshift weapons facing technology that could vaporize them. They fought anyway. A factory worker in Beijing used construction equipment to destroy a Devourer harvester. A teacher in London organized children to sabotage machine communication nodes. An old man in Lagos detonated explosives he had carried for hours, taking 50 machines with him. Earth was dying, but dying hard, making every meter cost the Devourers dearly. Owen felt his body failing. The interface was killing him slowly. He had minutes left, maybe less, but the battle wasn't over. Through the interface connection, he felt something new. Earth's weapon systems were reaching critical mass. Not failure, evolution. The architects had built in one final protocol. If Earth faced extinction, the planet could release everything at once. Every weapon firing simultaneously at maximum power. It would destroy the planet, but it would take the enemy with it. Owen understood. The architect's final gift, mutual assured destruction. Earth could choose to die rather than be conquered. All remaining ships full retreat, Owen ordered. Get clear of Earth orbit, maximum speed. Admiral, we can't abandon you, Kalen protested. You're not abandoning us. You're surviving to tell the galaxy what happened here. Now go, that's an order. The Allied ships retreated. Kalen's flagship was the last to leave. Owen watched them jump to safety. Then he addressed the entire planet through the interface. 8 billion people heard his voice in their minds. Everyone who can hear me, we have one option left. Earth has a final weapon. If we activate it, we destroy the enemy, all of them, but we destroy Earth too. I'm not ordering this. I'm asking, should we detonate our own planet to stop the machines, or do we surrender and maybe some of us survive? The response was instant. 8 billion voices speaking as one through the interface connection. The answer was unanimous. No surrender, no retreat. If Earth falls, it takes the enemy with it. Owen felt tears on his face. Pride and sorrow mixed together. Understood, activating final protocol. Earth's core began to overload. Every weapon platform channeling energy into one massive explosion. The Devourers detected the energy spike, tried to retreat. Too late. Earth detonated. The explosion consumed the entire system. 3 million Devourer ships vaporized instantly. The shockwave spread outward, destroying everything. Admiral Kalen watched from a safe distance, watched Earth die taking its enemies with it, watched humanity's final statement to the galaxy. This is what we're willing to pay. This is who we are. Except Earth didn't die. The explosion stopped, contained somehow. The planet reformed. The architect's technology worked in ways nobody understood. Earth wasn't destroyed, it was reborn. The surface was scorched, cities gone, but the planet survived, and so did 2 billion humans who made it to underground shelters. Owen woke up in a medical station, his neural interface severed, body broken but alive. Priya stood over him. What happened? The architects built a reset function. Earth could overload and survive, destroy everything around it but protect what mattered. You didn't kill the planet, you saved it. The Devourer fleet was gone, completely destroyed. The machines that survived elsewhere in the galaxy detected the loss, calculated new strategies, decided biological life was too unpredictable to harvest efficiently. They retreated to dark space, not defeated forever, but stopped. Months later, Earth began rebuilding. 2 billion survivors working with alien allies. Cities rose from ashes. The weapon platforms remained active but dormant. Admiral Richard stood at a memorial for the 6 billion who died. Names carved into stone, too many to read in one lifetime. Ambassador Hiroshi joined him. The Council wants to establish a permanent alliance, Earth as the military headquarters, human doctrine as the standard. Do they understand what that means? That will expect them to fight like we do. They understand. After watching us destroy our own planet rather than surrender, they understand everything. Kalen arrived with a Vorentine honor guard. Admiral, my government wishes to formally apologize for Auburn Station. We should have helped instead of attacking. Owen shook his head. Auburn Station taught the galaxy what humanity could do. Maybe it needed to happen. Still, we were wrong, you were right. Some things are worth any price. The three of them stood in silence, looking at the memorial, thinking about sacrifice, about courage, about the price of survival. Across the galaxy, species told stories about Earth, the death world that became a weapon, the planet that died and lived, the place that forged humanity. But humans told different stories, about people who chose to stand firm, about volunteers who died operating alien machines, about civilians who fought with makeshift weapons, about crews who made suicide runs to buy seconds, about refusing to fall back even when the universe itself said surrender. That refusal changed everything, not just for humanity, for every species that learned from them. The Devourers would return someday, but next time the galaxy would be ready, because humanity taught them the most important lesson. Some things are worth fighting for, and when you find those things, you never retreat, you never surrender, you stand and fight until you win or die trying. That was the moment the true war began, not against machines, against the idea that extinction was acceptable, against the belief that some people didn't matter enough to save. Humanity refused to fall back from that belief, and that refusal saved the galaxy.